All right, class, in this lesson, we are going to learn about the point slope form of a linear function. So let's go ahead and get started. So if you take a look at this graph here, this linear function, this really represents the amount of money that somebody is making for a certain number of hours worked. And the question is, how do we figure out what that hourly rate is? The obvious answer is if you just take a look at this point, for example, that's given to you, you'd see that this is $100, and if you work 4 hours, it is the person is making $25 per hour. Okay, but what really is going on is you're essentially identifying two different points, and so let me identify what those are. The 2 points are this first one that's given to us, which we just discussed, and that was 4 comma 100, and then the second point is our origin, or 0 comma 0. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and label these just to make things a little bit easier as we move on. I'm going to call the first point x1 comma x2 comma y2, and then the origin to be x1 comma y1. Okay, now to figure out the hourly rate, we essentially took the y2, and I'm going to go ahead and write this out here. We took y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And if you were to plug in those numbers, they would be 100 minus 0 over 4 minus 0. And that's where we got the 100 divided by 4, which is really 25. Okay, now this ratio here, this y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, is the equation for slope, which we will call m. Okay, this is the same m as the one in the slope-intercept form. If you learn that particular video, I reference this m. If you don't remember or haven't watched this video or that video, this m represents slope, and we will show you how this is going to be used. Okay, and so in this particular example, the question here is, how can you write the equation of a line using any 2 points? So basically, this formula applies to any 2 points on this line, or on any particular line. So you can select this point and this point, okay, plug them into this equation, and you're going to get the same slope as what we have here in this first calculation of 25. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to another example and apply what we just learned. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to write an equation in point slope form. Now, the equation of a point slope form is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. Okay, now I'm going to change the color of a few of these variables to show you that these are the variables that we want to change. Okay, so y1 and x1 I'm going to label in green, and then my slope I'm going to label this in magenta. Okay, so then what this means is, in this equation, this blue y and this blue x, we don't change. That's part of the equation no matter what problem that you're using. Okay, so here's the question. We have a line with a slope of 1/2 that passes through the point 3, negative 2. Okay, what form can you use to write the equation of a line? And what is the equation in that form? Okay, now the beauty of what we call the point slope form, which is what this is that you only need the point and the slope to write the equation. Okay, so let's go ahead and label this. My slope is equal to 1/2. That's given to us. And my point is equal to 3 comma -2. Okay? Since we have those components, we're going to go ahead and put them into the equation, and that's going to give us y minus 3, I'm sorry, not 3, -2. That's my y1. And that's going to equal my slope, which is 1/2, times x minus 3. Okay? Now, we will go ahead and simplify this. When you subtract a negative, that becomes a positive. And so this equation comes out to y plus 2 is equal to 1/2 x minus 3. And that is the solution to this example. Okay, so that is when, that is probably the easiest thing to do when a problem is giving you both the point and the slope. So it's just a matter of plugging it into this equation. Okay. Now let's move on to the next example. Here, we're kind of go back to the original example where we're talking about that hourly rate. And the question here is, what is the equation of the line that passes through -4,1 and 2 comma 3? Okay. So here we're only given 2 points, and we need to write an equation that passes through both of those points. So the first thing we need to do is establish our slope. Okay. And if you recall, our slope was y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, and let's go ahead and label this, these 2 points here. I'm going to label this to be x2 and y2, and then this to be x1 and y1. Okay, so now that we have those labeled, and it doesn't matter which one is which, we could have called this x2, y2. The important thing is the 2's and the 1's stay together. Okay, so if we were to go ahead and plug these values into this equation, we would get 3 minus 1 over 2 minus -4. And that works out to 2 over 6, or my slope is 1/3. Okay? Now, to use the point slope form, let me go ahead and write this out. Point slope form, if you recall from the earlier example, we said the point slope form is y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. Okay, this means that we need a point and a slope. We have the slope, we just calculated it to be 1/3, and we need a point. Well, we have 2 points given in our problem, so we can go ahead and use whatever point we want. I'm going to use 2 comma 3. Okay, so then my equation is going to be y minus, what's y1, or in this case my y component, it's 3. So that's going to be y minus 3 is equal to, what's my slope, 1/3, times x minus my x value, which is 2. Okay, and there is my equation in point slope form. And this is the equation of the line. This is the equation of the line that passes through both of these points. Okay, what this means is I can plug -4 in for x and 1 for y, and this equation will be true. And I can plug 2 in for x and 3 for y, and this equation will also be true. Okay, let's move on to the next example. Okay, now instead of coming up with the equation, we're now given the equation, and we need to graph the equation of this line. Okay, so let's take a look. Here we have an equation in point slope form, which means we can gather 2 key pieces of information. First, we can gather the slope. We know our slope is going to be -2/3. It's given to us. Okay, and then our point is going to be -1 comma 3. Why -1? because the formula is supposed to be x minus 1. Well, what makes this plus? The x value to be, the x value is negative 1, which is what makes this positive. Okay, so my point is going to be negative 1 comma 3. Okay, so then we can go ahead and graph this. Negative 1 comma 3 is going to be right over here, negative 1 comma 3, and we know that our slope is negative 2/3. So we're going to go ahead and start at the point, and we're going to go to a slope of 2/3. So we're going to go up 2 and then to the left 3 since it's negative. So we're going to plot a point there. Okay, now the opposite could also happen. Since this is a negative slope, we could go down from this point, go down 2, but then we would have to go right 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we would also plot a point there. And we can go ahead and connect the dots here. And there is our sketch of the line. Okay, let's move on to the last example, and this is an application of what we just learned. So here we have an event facility that has a banquet hall that can hold up to 250 people. Okay, this is what this graph represents. The price for a party includes the cost of the room rental plus the cost of a meal for each guest. Okay, Marissa is planning an event for 75 people, and she has budgeted $1,200 for the party, and the question is, will it be enough? Okay, so let's take a look here in this chart. 75 people is going to be right about here. We want to know what that cost is, so we're going to use both of these variables to help us determine that. And the first thing we want to do is calculate our slope. Okay, now if you recall, our slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so let's go ahead and identify our points here. This is represented, or the coordinate there is going to be 100 comma 1,325. Okay, that's what this point here, and this point here is going to be 50. So I'm going to write this as 50 comma 725. Okay, and so we can go ahead and plug in those values. We're going to say that y2 is the larger number, and so y2 is going to be 1,325 minus 725 over 100 minus 50. And doing the subtraction, this comes out to 600 over 50, and that works out to 12. Okay, so this means that this is going to be $12 a person, and we said that there were 75 people, so 12 times 75 works out to, let's see, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 1 is 5, plus 1 is 6, then 7 times 2 is 14, carry the 1, 7 times 1 is 7, 8, and we add this up, and we get 900, okay? So the cost for 12 people, the cost of 75 people at $12 comes out to $900. Marissa budgeted for $1,200, and the question is, will it be enough? And the answer is yes. Yes, it will be enough. Okay? All right, hopefully that made sense. If you were unclear about any of this, please go back to the beginning of the recording and listen to this again. Thank you.